Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Hager number 282D flush bolt. The 282D is probably the most common flush bolt that Hager makes. It not probably is, it certainly is. This is a typical metal door type lever extension flush bolt. They're sold as each. When you buy one, you're going to get one. They're generally purchased in multiples of two. One for the top of the door and one for the bottom. Lots of people use these on wood doors as well, but it's really not the best choice for a wood door, even though it's an incredibly common choice for a wood door. The basic visual tour of its components are going to be the body itself in the finish specified. This is 26D satin chrome. You're going to get the rod. The length of the rod is related to the size of the flush bolt. This is a 12-inch flush bolt. The rod doesn't measure 12-inch. The distance from the end of the door, the top or the bottom of the door, to the center of the faceplate is the 12-inch. This would work for a door that would be 6'8" tall or 7 foot tall. You get into something that's 12 foot tall, you're probably going to want to go with a longer rod, like a 24-inch rod, maybe 18, 9-foot door, 10-foot door. The rod length just needs to get longer. You don't want any ladder to unlock your door. That's a typical 1/4-20 thread. We can sell you these rods in those longer lengths. Reach out to us for that material if it's not already linked down below this video for the longer rods. You'll get the bolt head that's going to thread onto the top or bottom of the rod depending on top or bottom of the door. That's shaped like a D, and we're going to talk more about that in a moment. You'll get the rod guide, top or bottom of the door. You will then get the strike plate into the header or into the floor. And then finally, you'll get the screw package. Okay, screws for everything, the body of the door, and then the strike and the bolt head guide. You're going to, of course, get installation instructions, which are really just a template is really what they are. And having that template is really all you need to install them. Maybe someone who's never done it has questions that they don't feel might be answered when looking at just a technical drawing. And that's true. It's just a lot of architectural hardware. You're given a template. Okay, here it is. Then you review it and look at the door and say, okay, well, I need to make the door look like this and then install the hardware. I've installed these types of pieces of hardware hundreds of times. In both wood and metal doors. I think they're more common in wood only because how many wood doors exist in relationship to steel doors? 10 times the number? Who knows? Maybe 100 times the number. The common flush bolt size, you're dealing with a 6 3/4, even though the template calls out something a bit different. 6 3/4 by 1. Okay, typical and common. We talked about the size, the 12-inch, top of the door or bottom to the center of that 6 3/4 faceplate. That's what you have to know, and that's drawn out on the template. So from there, you can determine where do you have to locate the preparation for this 6 3/4 by 1-inch plate. Okay, you've determined that size because you can look and see it's half of the distance. 6 3/4 divided by 2. You've got the preparation up and down. You've got the width. Or you change that dimension based on what you're doing for the top rod. Taller door, longer top dimension. The bottom is generally always going to be 12-inch. I've seen it different, but it's always 12-inch. You bend down to operate the flush bolt. Now, what they really don't give you at all, because these are intended for steel doors, is how to prep for the rest of the body, because the core of a hollow metal door is going to be hollow. You might have to get it in there and manipulate the core that's in there to accept this body. But if you're installing this onto a wood door, you've got two router preparations. You've got one for the plate, which will be the width, the length, and then the thickness of the plate. But then you've got one for this body, which will be the length of the body, the width of the body, and then the depth of the body. And that's where in my estimation, the caliper is the woodworker's actual best friend, because you'll get in there with your caliper and measure all of this. Add any sort of margin, test the operation. Does anything change when I operate the bolt? And you can see that indeed it does. That flat spring comes out a bit, so you're going to want to make sure that you're accounting for that in your preparation depth. You don't want to have to go back in there and do it again. So you're going to account for that sort of depth as well. Measure all of that, and then do your body prep, the prep for the body first. Get in there and do that deeper prep with your template. Then do the face plate prep last. The reason I like to do that is as I'm exiting the piece of hardware, if I've done the work that's concealed first and do the exposed work, meaning the plate work, if I do the plate work last, I have less of an opportunity to damage the door with the router exiting off of the workpiece. So I like to do my finished work last. And then get out of there and don't touch it again, kind of thing. That router, you have a tendency to maybe pull it off while it's still spinning, or tipping it unintentionally while it's in the template. I've always used, Porter Cable makes their clamp-on style router templates, which would be great for this. I forget the part number, might be 517, but there's a link in our website to the right of center at the bottom is manufacturers. Can do a find function on your keyboard for Porter Cable or Porter, and get to the Porter Cable manufacturers page, open up the catalog, and then look for the templates that are in there. That's the one that I've always used for doing something like this. They're expensive, but they're accessible, they're fast, they're easy to work. So you've got to make that body prep, the plate prep. The problem with wood doors is drilling that hole from the top or bottom of the door, and I've done it lots of times. The problem with it is you really need a fixture, and there's a company that makes a clamp-on style fixture for like an 18-inch auger bit. A half-inch, I think, is the size that's needed for this. This is 1/4-20 rod, so drilling a half-inch hole would certainly work for that size. The bolt head diameter is 1/2 inch. I might opt to go a little bit larger so the bolt head can move around in there, and then use the guide once I've attached it to the top or bottom of the door to keep it. And why that preparation is in a D, you do not want this to rotate unintentionally over time. That's threaded onto the end of the rod as you install all that into the door. You don't want that moving over time, because it will loosen eventually, and something will loosen, I should say, and fall into the door. You'll probably want to thread that down all the way to the shoulder stop when you install that into the actual body itself. Keep that from moving. When you thread that bolt on, now you're in a fixed position, then the rod guide goes on after you've got the bolt head attached up here, obviously. Now, back to drilling that hole. That's risky business, because you've got disparate materials in the end of the door, where you've got the style of the door, maybe a void, and then the core of the door, and that drill bit wants to, dip on you. That's why you don't really use these for wood doors, but you can get a fixture to guide your bit in. You can slowly drill the door and remove the material, and do so that your bit doesn't want to seek the less dense material. And that can work out splendidly. There are times when it just simply doesn't, because you've got a style that's a really funny size, and you can't drill a half of a hole through material that doesn't exist. That's really when you want to get into the wood door style flush bolts, and I think that would be the 382 is that part number from Hager. I'm going to pull that up because I don't remember that part number. There's a link below this video to the product catalog where you can see these flush bolts. Not 382, 283 would be the proper manual flush bolt for a wood door, because you're dealing with a corner preparation and no need to drill a very long hole in a risky business with expensive tools that are used for only one purpose. 283 would be the wood door style. Now, the rest of the template, it will give you the dimensions of the strike. Basically 2 1/4, basically, by 1 inch. That thickness is probably 40 thousandths of an inch. They say it's a 1/16, so .032 thick. Then you've got the rod guide itself. You'll mortise that if it's a wood door. If it's a steel door, you're probably just surface mount it. 2 by 1 inch. Reinforcing tabs, and the template calls out this unit for a metal door, and that's why you're going to have a reference to reinforcing tabs that you wouldn't have in a wood door. You can adapt these to wood doors. It's an endeavor. However, if you're going to be ordering wood doors from us or from somebody else, you're going to order them prepped for this, and the factory will build the doors happily for these sorts of flush bolts without any trouble at all. Back to that link, and if you have any questions on installing this material, don't hesitate. I have installed these countless times using a variety of different methods, from doing it by hand to doing it with good hand tools to doing it with really, really expensive computer-controlled equipment. So I'm familiar with the process. There's nothing else on the template that I think we've really not discussed. So if you have any questions about that, reach out. The link to the product catalog will give you an overview of all of Hager's flush bolts and accessories, such as a dust-proof strike, which you would use a shopping mall where you've got doors with flush bolts, you've got some sort of stone floor. You're not going to have just one of these installed onto the floor. You'll put something more elegant like a dust-proof strike. The automatic flush bolts, the manual flush bolts for wood and metal doors are all listed there. It's handy to, if you are in the construction industry, to review the functions of flush bolts because they're different. Automatic flush bolts operate in a specific way. Manual flush bolts obviously are just manual. Getting to the end of the catalog, you're going to see that you've got some coordinators that are there as well, and those are certainly related to flush bolt installations. Finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Hager products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. If you have any questions on the Hager 282D lever style extension flush bolt or any other Hager product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.